Did you know that the holiday festivities on and around December 25th date back over 2,000 years ago? Hello and welcome to World History Encyclopedia. My name is Kelly and today's video is all about the history of Christmas and how it has grown and developed as a holiday from its earliest history in the Roman Empire to the modern day, primarily Anglo-Saxon celebrations. World History Encyclopedia is a non-profit organisation and you can find us on Patreon, a brilliant site where you can support our work and receive exclusive benefits in return. Your support helps us create videos twice a week, so make sure to check it out at worldhistory.org/Patreon or via the Patreon link down below. The gift-giving, feasting, and general merriment of Christmas are features of the holiday that can be traced all the way back to pre-Christian Rome, and actually pre-Roman Empire as well, all the way back to the Roman Republic and the establishment of Saturnalia. Saturnalia was a week-long festival in ancient Rome from December 17th to the 23rd in honour of the agricultural god Saturn, and also incorporating the winter solstice at the same time, with a celebration of the god's Sol Invictus, the new sun. Saturnalia was the merriest of Roman festivals that involved giving gifts of candles, food, and terracotta figurines known as sigilla. The temple of Saturn in the Roman Forum was a focal point of Saturnalia, and within the temple there once stood a cult statue of Saturn. At the beginning of the festival, the feet of Saturn were symbolically freed from the woolen bonds that tied him up for the rest of the year. And this was one way in which role reversals were manifested during the Saturnalia. And role reversals and the flipping of conventions was a central aspect of the festival, which also saw a lowly servant turned into the Lord of Misrule, who could partake in light-hearted mischief, and slaves being free to drink in public with their masters, and even to gamble, all activities forbidden throughout the rest of the year. With the rise in popularity of Christianity, the Church wanted to distance itself from the pagan religion and rituals of Rome, and this led to the closing down of ancient sacred sites, rituals were prohibited, and sporting games that once honoured Roman gods were put to an end. But Saturnalia had become so popular and the tradition so integral to the religious and social life of Rome that the holiday was transformed by the Church into the new Christian holiday of Christmas. During the medieval period from circa 500 to 1500 CE, Christmas was the longest holiday of the year. Christmas spanned the full 12 days from Christmas Eve on December 24th to the 12th day, Epiphany, on January 6th. Due to the lull in agricultural activities, since it was the middle of winter, people took these 12 days to rest. In order to prepare the home for Christmas, both the rich and the poor would gather winter foliage and create garlands to decorate the home. For the Celts, holly, ivy, and mistletoe had long been associated with protection against evil spirits, as well as with encouraging fertility. The association with fertility helps explain the tradition of couples kissing under the mistletoe. Another connection to pagan rituals was the Yule log, a prodigious piece of a tree trunk that would be kept alight for the entire 12 days in the home's hearth. Of course, for the Christians, the whole point of Christmas was to celebrate the birth of Jesus Christ. Attendance at church was expected of everyone, and in some periods during the medieval period, it was actually compulsory, and so local churches made sure to make the service worthy of such a special occasion. This meant candles were lit and glittering gilded altarpieces were opened, often only for Christmas Day. Extra songs would often be performed by the choir, and scenes from the Nativity tale were performed, which over time became a piece of theatre, including costumes and animals. Gifts were given to friends and family, as the 3 gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh were given to baby Jesus in Bethlehem, according to scripture. The rich would gift fine jewellery and clothes, and the less well-off would have nicer food and give their children simple wooden toys. But the spirit of giving did not extend to the serfs, the lowest members of society. At least not in terms of them receiving anything, as they were required to present their Lord with extra bread, eggs, and perhaps even a Christmas chicken. Gifts were also given on January 1st. These gifts were thought to indicate a person's fortune for the coming year, and were known as first gifts. First footing was another indication of the year to come, which was the first guest you had at your home, when on New Year's Day, people would visit each other's houses, with the most desired guest being male, dark-haired, and flat-footed. Just as it is now, the food was a big part of the pleasure of Christmas, and the great Christmas meal was generally an early lunch, with the tablecloth being swapped out after each course. Entertainment such as musicians and acrobats would perform as you feasted on roast peacock, boar's head, and salmon for lunch, and cakes, fruit custards, figs, dates, and grapes for dessert. Well, you would if you were the rich. Watchers were paid to ensure that the property wasn't damaged during the 12-day holiday, full of big parties, with the biggest parties being held on the 12th night. The poor still celebrated, albeit more modestly, with games and dice, musical instruments, and telling of folk tales and board games as the main entertainment. Similar to the Lord of Misrule of Saturnalia was the medieval King of the Feast, a role reversal game where one person would become King of the Feast if they found a bean in the special bread or cake, and then everyone else would have to mimic the king. Pageants, puppet shows, and pantomimes were put on by churches and guilds as free holiday entertainment, and professional entertainers, the masked mummers, would visit homes and perform for some refreshments or a small fee. Leftovers from the grand manor lunches were given to the poor, and some lucky serfs or lowly individuals might even be invited to join the lunch. This idea of giving back has endured to the modern day. The prominent and dominant role of the medieval church in people's lives started to ease a bit as the medieval period came to a close. Although attendance at some church services was still compulsory, with the Reformation in full swing in England and across Europe, the splendour of medieval Christmas services was greatly diminished. During the Elizabethan era from 1558 to 1603, holy days were the main source for public holidays. But beyond holy days were some secular days also making their way as popular traditions. Advent, which was the fasting before Christmas, had transformed more into a countdown to the Christmas holiday, which was still 12 days long at this point. And the higher number of children attending school during this period compared to the Middle Ages all got 2 weeks off for the holiday period. Continuing in this period was the giving of gifts and the recognition of this time of year for charity. The giving of gifts on January 1st still held out as the biggest day for gift giving, with Queen Elizabeth I regularly being gifted with jewels, incredibly ornate dresses, and feather fans from courtiers. The poorer folk would give more modest gifts of pins, gloves, and fruit. The Christmas feasts, though, were perhaps the most looked forward to, and had only gotten more extravagant. Private Christmas celebrations were now biggest on December 25th, rather than the previously most popular of Twelfth Night. Candles and evergreens decorated homes, songs were sung, and games were played as entertainment. These traditions endured, as did the role reversals, with apprentices getting the better of their masters, and the queen and king of the feast were chosen from two commoners, but they were still the two who had found the bean and the pea in a spiced cake. The Christmas period was also the chance to travel and see more of the kingdom sights. With no public roads, travelling by horse and carriage could be quite an uncomfortable journey, but many people still set out to see the English sights. During the Tudor period, visiting the Tower of London and seeing the Crown Jewels were popular attractions. The name of the celebration as Christmas came under fire by the Anglican Church during the English Reformation, and Christmas itself was seriously threatened by Puritans who wanted to spend the day fasting instead. Fortunately, in 1660, the decision to cancel the celebration of Christmas by law was reversed, and after this, the festival became established as the most important holiday of the year. It's during the Victorian era that the modern holiday of Christmas was firmly established, both in the festivities and the literature, and it was particularly under the reign of Queen Victoria between 1837 and 1901, where new traditions became lasting parts of the holiday season. The Victorians displayed an intense nostalgia for the medieval Christmas festivities, and they made sure to include the medieval elements of feasting, games, gifts, pantomimes, and the morning church service. Queen Victoria's husband, Albert, introduced the Christmas tree to Britain, and from 1841, Christmas trees became a lasting tradition that spread from living rooms to public squares. Carols and songs were sung around the family piano or outside by groups of carolers. The first book of carols dates to 1521. The tradition was truly spread far and wide during the Victorian era. Plus, with the introduction of a more efficient postage system in 1840, correspondence increased, which led to the development of the tradition of sending Christmas cards to friends and distant family, with the first introduction of Christmas cards in England in 1843. Imported from Germany and Holland were mass-produced toys, which replaced handmade toys, moving away from simple wooden toys to mechanisms that made dolls walk and trains roll along. It was also at this time that the 26th of December received the title of Boxing Day in Britain, because employers traditionally gave servants and workers a box of gifts and leftovers. Of course, it wouldn't be Christmas without the jolly figure of Father Christmas, leaving presents for the good children. Father Christmas has his origins in the 4th century Saint Nicholas, the Bishop of Myra in Anatolia, who distributed gifts, including sacks of gold. And when one of the recipients of Saint Nicholas's gifts received them through the chimney, where they landed in a sock, this began the tradition of Father Christmas coming down the chimney and leaving presents in a stocking hung above the hearth. St. Nicholas is still celebrated in many countries on December 6th, but he is now more commonly known as the jovial Santa Claus in his red suit and white beard. The finale of Victorian Christmas feasts was the steamed Christmas pudding or plum pudding, and much like the bean from medieval sweets, a silver coin was placed within the Victorian Christmas pudding. Mince pies were popular, and unlike today, were once full of both meat and fruit. The table would be decorated with Christmas crackers, which two people would pull apart to find toys, charms, paper hats, and sweets inside. Games and songs were played for entertainment, and many of these activities and traditions were captured in the literature of the time, and none more successfully than Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. Dickens' popular tale of the three ghosts who visit Ebenezer Scrooge on Christmas Eve was part of a long tradition of telling ghost stories around Christmas time, when it was thought the spirits of the dead could return to walk among the living. Dickens just changed the traditional ghost tale to a Christmas story. Many other traditions and festivities have continued to transform and develop, especially with the introduction of characters like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Frosty the Snowman, chocolate advent calendars, and children meeting Santa Claus at local shopping centres. Electric lights rather than candles adorn the tree, churches are not quite as busy as they once were, and fewer Christmas cards are sent now that people favour email. Despite the new forms of observance, the many festive and well-loved traditions celebrated and loved on Christmas today continue the same spirit as those that gave birth to them many, many years ago. If you could celebrate Christmas during one of these periods, which would you choose and why? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on new videos published every single week. This video was brought to you by World History Encyclopedia. For more great articles and interactive content, head to our website via the link below. If you like my shirt, you can find this design and a bunch more in our shop at worldhistory.store, or you can find a link for it down below. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you soon with another video.